Oh my gosh. I feel like I haven't seen you guys in a little bit.
It's been a while.
It's been a minute. We've been stressed. We've been going through a lot of things. Financial burden-ships. Donna's plaque psoriasis.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really bad.
There's some stuff going on, and we're working a lot.
Yeah.
Working a lot.
She tried to be a substitute teacher. The kids called her a crocodile.
Oh.
Her skin's horrible. Look at it, Bobby.
I don't want to talk about it.
Stop
it's my
scratching
elbow.
it.
Stop looking
You're
at my
going to make it
elbows.
worse.
Episode 44.
44.
You guys going to be able to do this?
Oh, yeah, I'm great.
Despite your hardships?
I haven't eaten in 3 days because of this crocodile, but...
I'm used to him now, so, whatever. Go on.
Gotcha. All right, well, episode 44, guys, we're going to be looking at Detective Steve Thomas. Ooh. We've talked about him a lot over these past 43 episodes, but never have we done a full feature on him.
Handsome man, Steve Thomas.
Handsome man,
He's
Steve
an attractive,
Thomas.
conventionally attractive man, symmetrical features, gorgeous full
Garrett Hedlund's going to play him.
Wait, was this the
Amazing.
son of a bitch?
No, that's Tom Carson.
Oh, okay.
That's Tom Carson.
Yeah.
But Steve Thomas, detective that resigned, we're going to get into this whole story. And I think by the end of it, you're going to see a pattern of the city of Boulder kind of holding the police department back.
Wait.
Yeah.
A pattern?
A pattern.
Was Steve Thomas in the story?
Yeah, let's get into it, though.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, well, hey,
All right.
I'm Bobby Pavlovsky.
And I'm Teddy Ron Reagan. This Mackie.
And this is
JonBenet
today.
I love it.
Entertainment today.
What's up today in the entertainment universe of JonBenet?
JonBenet.
JonBenet.
Well, we do know that the documentary is coming upon us.
The Netflix documentary.
Yeah, it's going to be a week out.
A week out from now?
A week out from now. We're talking about doing maybe a watch party with the people on our Patreon.
What do you mean? We're going to watch them watch?
No, we're all going to watch
at
it
the same
together.
time,
We're going to watch it together?
simultaneously.
And talk to each other?
Yeah.
Oh, I love talking to people, Bobby.
So check out our Patreon, patreon.com/JonBenet today, if you want to possibly be involved with that.
I mean, you can even join for free if you want, if you're a cheapskate or you don't got no money.
Right.
If you're poor and but you still like art.
There's free membership.
Poor people like art, Bobby.
But
But
of course.
the people should
Just
join
the
so they can do the
support's
live
good.
streaming with us.
Exactly. We'd love to get you guys involved with that. But no, we're not going to be talking. We're not talking about the Netflix series because that's the whole Intruder Did It thing. We covered that last episode. We are talking about the upcoming Paramount Plus series,
Paramount Plus.
tentatively titled JonBenet Ramsey.
Okay.
They keep
Which is her
mentioning-
name, fun
Just
fact.
name. Okay.
That's JonBenet's full name.
Well, in all the articles, they always say like it's like currently titled this, so it's like
what do you think it's really going to be titled? Like Breaking the Angel?
I don't know
Christmas
because you don't want to have
ornament.
something weird where there's like a subtitle like the colon like JonBenet Ramsey. Like it's got to be
Right.
something that
I mean,
like,
it's about her, so having it just be titled with her name makes sense.
something
if they're trying to
JonBenet.
honor her.
yeah.
You know.
The English JonBenet patient.
Killing JonBenet or something that
I mean, I guess if you
I
want
see
to,
a
if you got to.
two-word thing.
Yeah.
Or some sort of play on the death of innocence,
I mean, I just wonder. I think that it'll be a big choice which way they go. Because this Netflix documentary, which we're not going to talk about, but what's it called again, Bobby? It's called like the JonBenet Experience.
It's Cold Case. The JonBenet Experience. No, it's Cold Case, like Who Killed JonBenet or something like that.
Yeah, and I'm just like, okay. I mean, there was a time and a place when these felt like I was watching, I don't know, something in school. You know, when it's like things used to be like they had fun names like Radish. You know,
What? What
Cinnamon
fucking
Rush.
school?
Keep you
Just different
interested.
names.
Cinnamon
Like
Rush?
movies, Bobby.
Okay, but this
Like
is a documentary.
The Dead Poet's Penis.
and we were
Society.
talking about the name for the Paramount show.
Paramount. Paramount makes movies, Bobby.
I know, and this was also something I want to bring up with
They
this
didn't
too.
call The Godfather Al Pacino.
I know, and they're good, but something we didn't talk about too with this upcoming series is that CBS. Do you remember the Burke Ramsey one where they got sued?
Oh yeah, that's right. The documentary that they got.
Right. CBS owns Paramount and Paramount Plus.
Oh.
And they've already been sued for $750 million. Yet they're still going forward with this miniseries that kind of leans towards the Ramseys did it, which means they've already been through the legal process with them. And remember, these settlements are private. We don't know what they settled for. So it's a thing of like, oh, could have been $5, but both parties have to agree not to
Just
talk
not
about it.
disclose.
And it looks like, oh, maybe the Ramseys won the lawsuit. But it's CBS, and they're doing this series. So It's kind of interesting that it's like, oh, maybe these settlements aren't as much as we actually think they are.
Maybe it's
They
like
don't hold the same weight.
Well, maybe it's like the settlement is that you're not only going to pay us X amount of cash, but you're also one day going to make fictional thing, or you're gonna have the story rights or whatever, and you're gonna tell the story in a certain way.
Like you know what to avoid though. But also they don't have Lynn Wood anymore.
Well, that's true. So
Who is their main?
do you think it's gonna be critical?
I think so. Of them? I think it'll leave it open to interpretation because, well, let's get into our casting news.
Okay.
Because there's been new people added to the cast.
They were casted in the movie. That's what it means. These people are actors.
Limited series. Limited
It's not a movie.
series.
Limited series.
So, we did get new casting news. Maria Francis has been cast as a young Patsy.
Okay, young Patsy, Maria Francis.
Maria Francis, she's a young actor just starting out. I saw on her Instagram that there was a post she made back in September.
Okay.
That had a picture of her that almost kind of looked like Patsy's beauty pageant picture, the black and white one where she's running around.
Yeah.
And she had a Patsy Cline song playing for the picture
OMG,
with a caption that said someday or like one day this will make sense kind of thing.
Oh my God.
An Easter
Patsy
egg.
Cline has the same name.
Past Patsy, yeah. And I commented with like the looky eyes, like, oh, I think we noticed. We were the first people to notice. It's like, oh, this is about Patsy and the casting because it wasn't reported in the trades.
Bobby, you were so good at being on Instagram.
You're so in tune.
She responded to us too with eyes back. So
I bust back.
I bust back.
That means she likes us.
Yeah, maybe she's checked us out.
She knows us, Bobby.
So also additional casting.
I want Maria on this show.
Yeah, that'd be great actually.
Did you say you want Rihanna on the show?
No, Maria.
I think fucking stupid.
I said it so fast I couldn't tell.
I think a lot of these people might be bound to some sort of. I don't know. We should test it out to ask.
We can do press,
but I
events.
imagine it'd be a thing where you're not really supposed to talk about too much. Because even in that Garrett Hedlund interview, he was hesitant to be like, "Oh, wait, it's 8 series. I think I can say that."
If I was starring in
8 episodes.
If I was starring in a movie about graham crackers, I would go on every graham cracker podcast to promote my movie about.
Yeah,
graham
when it's
crackers.
time. They haven't even figured out the name yet.
Well, maybe we can figure it out right now.
No. So other castings, Rugburn. That would be the JonBenet movie.
Yeah, maybe.
Have you checked that out?
Like it's like a Guy
Hot
Ritchie
Burn.
movie.
It's like a 30 Rock thing where they don't get the rights to Janis Joplin, so it's like Janis Jorplin.
Yeah, instead of JonBenet,
So they have
it's
to,
like
alter-
Jack
Slightly
Daniels.
different.
Oh God, moving
Slightly off.
on, you guys. Let's go.
Oh, okay. So other casting, the young Huxley Fisher has been cast as Reed Hunt Jr. Reed Hunt, we know as Josh Stamberg has been cast as him. We found out that that's a Fleet White pseudonym.
Oh, that's right. Oh,
They're one of the few characters in this miniseries or limited series that aren't going by their actual name, which is interesting. And I hope it means they've informed the production. Like they're the ones that like have given extra insight because we still don't know what this is possibly based on. Like the
that's
writers.
true.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So excited for Reed Hunt Jr. to be cast in there and shown. Also, we have a guy named Claude Duhamel.
The what?
Claude Duhamel. Duhamel, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe
Like Josh Duhamel.
Yeah, maybe like his brother. He's been cast as John Kennedy, who we know as the cowboy hat wearing. I was praying somebody would give me a call.
Oh my God.
And then Lou Smith called me.
He's in the
Yeah.
miniseries, the limited series.
Yeah, because they're going to look at all the alternative suspects, I think.
That's interesting that they have him in it. I don't know. It's just telling.
It's like,
Yeah.
he could have one scene, he could have several.
But we don't
Right.
see if Michael Helgoth casted yet.
Oh.
Unless, final casting piece of information, we have this guy, Adam Lolaka, has been cast as Bart Davies.
My mammy.
The only other character other than the Hunts that have been renamed, because there's no Bart Davies in this case.
So who could Bob Baby be?
I think he might possibly be Gary Olive, just by
Okay.
looking at him. Here, let me bring up a picture for you guys. Does that not right off the bat? That's almost lazy casting, where I feel like the casting person was looking through, and then right when you got to this
Like
page,
clicked on that headshot.
that looks exactly like the Gary Olive picture that always comes up.
Yeah.
Let me bring that up.
They got that kind of Dothraki look to them.
Like white Dothraki.
Like white
Boom,
Dothraki.
right there, yeah. Like that.
Yeah.
That's the same, like.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to age
He's
him.
gonna have longer hair.
But
Or he could be Michael Helgoth. I don't know what he looks like without that mustache.
Michael Helgoth looked more pink. He looked like he
there's
might
him
have been
without
like
it. Actually, wait, there's him without it.
a cartoon character.
Wow, I guess he could play both.
I mean,
But why censor the name and who could? I think he's probably Gary Olive because it's a name that's not like, because it'd be like, oh, if we're gonna say he might still be a suspect that's out there,
Yeah.
you
And then change the
probably
name.
It just may
Yeah,
save.
yeah.
So I could easily see during production where they just to save a bunch of headaches. It's like, okay, that person changed their name. That
Right.
person we don't need to change.
Andrew Jarecki, the guy that did the Jinx.
yeah.
Beforehand, he made that All Good Things movie about Bob Durst with Ryan Gosling and Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
They didn't go by Bob Durst. He like changed the name completely.
Yeah.
But they still did like a whole title thing at the end with the fake name saying he still works in real estate in Florida.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. There's all different types of way to get around, being sued by people who like to sue.
Right.
Or whatever.
I mean, if you have the money, you can be litigious as a hobby.
Or they
Well,
could
that's
just be
cool.
combining, villains into one possibly. Who knows?
There could be montages. There could be all kinds of things. It's just the fact that what we're seeing though is that they're not. It seems like they're turning over every stone, and they're taking it seriously. And I mean, 8 episodes. And what's his name? The one actor who's gonna play the cop guy.
Garrett Hedlund, who's going to play Steve Thomas?
Yeah, Steve Thomas.
The guy we're talking about,
He
yeah.
was talking about basically like that the reasons why people are so blinded in their opinions, or maybe they don't know the whole story because there are a lot of things that interrupted the investigation along the way, and that this may be the first time they actually really get to understand it and see it because all the other projects, nothing's perfect in recounting, something like this, but like they maybe still have more of an agenda, or they were less sophisticated, or audiences weren't ready to
Right. Whatever did come out. I'm sure
Not
that
giving
there was
an
more of
accurate
agenda.
account of the
Yeah.
bureaucracy and stuff that happened within the police department, which is what we're going to do in this episode. So while that is it for entertainment today, we're going to do a
Entertainment
little
today.
preamble for Steve Thomas and his
Preamble.
episode. And what it's going to be is going to be a murder that happened in Colorado that it also involved Robert Redford.
What?
What?
5 years before Steve Thomas would formally join the Boulder Police Department, we're gonna look at a little case that didn't have anything to do with him yet. Okay.
Okay.
And this was the murder of Colorado University student Sid Wells.
Sidney Wells.
Sid
Sid Wells, who was also a broadcast journalism student. He's in his final year. Supposedly took a shotgun to the back of the head.
Oh my God.
Oh.
Well, you don't do that yourself.
As a senior in college,
As a senior.
Sid Wells, he got shot in the back of the head by himself.
No, they didn't look at it as a suicide. It was definitely looked
No,
at.
you definitely cannot
as
shoot
a
yourself
murder.
in the back
I was
of the
going to
head.
say, I don't think
no.
you take.
He was also the longtime boyfriend of Robert Redford's daughter.
Robert Redford has a daughter.
Robert Redford has a daughter.
And her boyfriend got shot in the back of the head.
Yeah, with a shotgun. Here's Robert Redford right there attending the funeral of Sid Wells in
he's so
Colorado.
fashionable.
He is so fake. God damn, he looks good.
Yeah, he does.
Do you think he was mourning?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He was probably so devastated.
I mean, he's there for his daughter. He's got to be there. They were dating for a few years. So
How
it's a lot.
many years?
I think it's described as a few years. So
Okay.
I'm imagining like 3 or 4.
Okay, yeah, I've dated
So
a few
he was
people for 4
around for a
years.
few Christmases, right?
Well,
Christmas Eve.
suspicion sort of started to fall immediately on his roommate, a guy by the name of Thane Smicka. Thane Smicka.
I don't like that name, Bob.
Thane with an F, like a Thane.
Thayne. Thane
Okay.
Smicka. And his mom ended up calling in that he had stored some sort of shotgun
Mate.
there at the house with like pellets and stuff. And the police went and they ended up finding it. They found out there was a shotgun in the home, so they went ahead and they arrested Mr. Thane Smicka. Here's the footage of that with him getting arrested right here.
Whoa.
1983.
They arrested Thane.
They arrested Thane.
Oh my God.
Brought him back to Boulder, Colorado.
He looks like he was in the Bee Gees.
He does
Kind of
look
looks like a Manson. It's
He
terrifying.
does look. I mean, he looks pretty crazy.
white with
He
the brown
suggested
hair.
that the roommate was possibly killed of a drug deal. He said his roommate was a cocaine dealer. They did test his body, and they found that he had a small amount of cocaine in it.
You a little cocaine in your system.
But also,
you get
this
it
guy
these
had-
days drinking water.
Right,
Yeah,
and this guy
right.
had a shotgun though that matched exactly
See,
the one.
Yeah,
that-
shotguns don't shoot cocaine.
It does not. It does not.
They shoot bullets or pellets or things.
Yeah, but so he ended up getting arrested in October of 1983,
1983. Okay.
and then in November he is released.
Thane got released.
The
He got
college
released.
student arrested a month ago after the slaying of the boyfriend of Robert Redford's daughter has been freed for lack of charges against him. Thane Smicka, 24, was freed Monday when a $100,000 bond against him was dropped. He was arrested October 6th for investigation of first-degree murder and the August 1st shotgun slaying of his roommate at the University of Colorado. Wells was the boyfriend of Shauna Redford, the actor's daughter. Authorities had considered Smicka the prime suspect, but Boulder County Judge Marcia Yeager dropped the bond after hearing that the district attorney's office would not file criminal charges against him Monday. Prosecutor Pete McGuire said filing now would be premature. He said a grand jury probe into Wells' death would continue and Smicka could be arrested again.
Oh my God.
But he was not.
He was never arrested.
He was not arrested.
He was only arrested. He was only held for a month. And then the DA was like, we're not even going to charge him with nothing.
Exactly.
Wow.
For whatever
Why?
reason.
Like, just...
he was the roommate of the guy who died.
Yeah.
And he also had a shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck?
And he was into like real estate stuff. They don't really mention very much, but he ended up being let go. But I'm just telling you guys this now because this is going to come back because we're going to do this in order. And when it does come back, it's going to be, it's going to have a bite.
Okay, got
It's going to have a bite. Thane
Smicka
and the Sid Wells murder is going to be very relevant.
I might try to remember it. My memory ain't getting no good no more. I mean, I've been losing a lot of memory with things. I can barely remember now much about Home Improvement no more, Bobby. I mean,
what do you mean you can't?
The other day I was trying to think about
you used
that
to be able
movie.
to recite
Remember that episode Blow Up, where it was?
Oh yeah, he blew up the picture of Jill.
Yeah, and she was upset about it, and I can't remember why he blew it up.
I don't. Why did he blow
season
it? I know.
Season 3, episode 7, Bobby.
I don't remember where it was, but I don't remember why he blew it up either.
I don't remember no neither. I'm thinking about too much about this case, and there's a lot of details. I'm overwhelmed.
That's not. Wait.
Your
Yeah,
brain's
there it is. There's that
yeah.
picture. Blow up. There we go.
Oh my God! Yeah. Remember our memories of us watching that episode, Bobby?
I
Just
do.
laughing.
But I don't remember why he blew up the picture.
It looks like a funeral home.
It does.
It's so sad.
I think it was like a charity, but that does look.
There's no chairs in that picture, Bobby.
Looks like a young Kirkwood Smith, but he's never looked young. So.
You know, I think he's more of a breakfast sausage guy than a bacon kind of guy.
Yeah, I never considered his breakfast habits because I never needed to. So
You can look at people's tongues and you can tell what kind of breakfast meat they prefer.
You can tell.
Oh yeah,
what do I got?
You're a sausage link guy.
No,
you love those little
it's
sausage
bacon.
links.
Jesus Christ.
Donna likes bacon. Donna likes, but like she likes thick cut bacon.
The thick stuff.
I like the thick cut bacon.
Thick and crispy.
But you don't love it no more than you like sausages. So that's what you love the most.
That's not true. Why are you
What's your
saying
tongue's
that?
designed for, Bobby?
My
Show me
God.
again. Stop.
All right. Well, you guys ready to get started with Steve Thomas's story?
Yeah, I'm about ready. Yeah, I'm excited. I love Steve.
All right. Well, let's get into Steve Thomas and his history.
Get inside him. Oh man, I'm really excited about today's subject, Bobby.
Steve Thomas, detective. Former detective.
He's kind of like a sheriff, like an old Wild West sheriff, like a cowboy.
Yeah, he's like a cowboy. I don't
He's
know
like standing
about
off, like
sheriff.
He's like a good, like he's like kind of like a Josh Brolin.
He's like a
but
deputy,
with a
but-
bigger prolapse butthole.
Oh.
You know, it's almost like Lo Smith. It's almost like it's like there's a white sheriff and a black sheriff, but not like the black collar, like African American. It's like they're wearing black clothes.
Lou Smith, then Steve Thomas is dueling sheriffs. One rides into town to
Like they
check up on you, your work.
Or there's like a standoff or something between like what is it? Who's that
Like
guy
a
with
showdown
the movie with
with
Clint Eastwood? Clint
Dirty
Eastwood.
Harry?
Clint Eastwood. He was in the spaghetti westerns with the.
Oh, yeah.
movie.
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it.
It's like
yeah.
Steve Thomas is like good back in the uglies.
Yeah. I guess.
What do you think? How do you think Clint Eastwood feels being named after a part of like female anatomy?
No.
Yeah.
Clint? You thinking of clit?
Like Clint, yeah. Like women have clints.
No.
Men have prostrates.
Clint? No, hun.
Rebates
no.
or something like that. Clint.
It's clit.
Like, I can't find the Clint.
No, there's no
Okay.
N, honey.
Clint Howard?
Clit.
If you're listening with your children, we apologize.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about Steve
We'll talk
Thomas.
about it.
We're not talking
We'll
about
talk about it
Clint's.
later.
Yeah, we're talking about Steve Thomas.
Okay.
But we're going to go back to a little bit before he joined the Boulder Police Department.
Okay.
He was the first member of his family to become a cop. His mother died when he was 7, and his father, who was constantly on the road raising funds for the March of Dimes, moved the family from Arkadelphia
to Arkansas.
to Dallas, Texas.
Akadawa, what?
That doesn't
So he
sound
was
like
a
real-
Texas boy.
He's from
Arkadelphia.
Texas. He's like a Texas cowboy, a Dallas cowboy.
Right?
But the fact that his mom died when he was 7.
Yeah, I believe I think it was a suicide. Which comes back
messy.
later. But Thomas and his 3 sisters were raised by a black nanny, Lee Bass.
Lee Bass.
It was Bass, Thomas says, who taught him that all people are equal.
So do black nannies wear all black?
Huh?
No.
Like we were talking about like a black cowboy. Like he wears
black
all black.
nannies wear all black?
Yeah.
Why would that be a thing?
They wouldn't
I'm
have.
just
They're
talking
not
about
like. It's not
black
like a
cats.
She's a nanny.
uniform.
It didn't say she was the maid.
Oh, so
We're not talking. This isn't like the fucking 1800s.
Okay, I'm just asking for clarification. All right.
But Lee Bass is a very old school.
That's like a jazz singer's name.
But I love that. I think that does grow you up with some humility, you know?
Yeah,
And you're
yeah.
basically raised by.
Some kind of Academy Award nominee in the lead actress category. I love that. Well, good for him. Okay.
Too bad Irma P. Hall's dead. So Thomas says she taught him that all people are equal. This was a lesson that haunted him during his work on the Ramsey case as he watched the Boulder legal establishment tiptoe around the multimillionaire family. And it stood him in good stead when, after publication of his book, he faced off on national television with the Ramseys themselves and with such famed defense experts as Alan Dershowitz.
Oh, Alan Dershowitz, friend of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein.
That's the one.
He had two uncles that were naval officers, so he planned to enter the Navy, but then he had a police officer visit his high school civics class, and after that, he was just like, I want to become a cop.
He wanted to what? Come?
He wanted to become a cop.
I misheard.
Jesus Christ.
Everybody comes, Bobby.
He ended up transferring to the University of Colorado, where he studied sociology with an emphasis on criminology. As a part of his field experience, he wrote with cops from the Denver and Aurora police departments. In a term paper, he described the different kind of cops he met. I talked about the cowboy cop, the social worker cop, the burned out cop, he remembers.
Cowboy cop.
I was trying to draw what I saw as the best from each of them. It's so easy in police work to get in the patrol car and do nothing but drive around for 10 hours and answer your occasional radio call. Good cops, the real hustlers, were the guys that, when they didn't have a call to respond to, were looking for bad guys, trying to pick up fugitives on warrants. They were chasing alleys in East Colfax, looking for suspicious cars, people that match robbery descriptions. And these are the guys who were consistently making an extraordinary number of arrests, recovering stolen guns, getting dope off the streets.
He talks like a boy.
It's interesting to see him like be so open about his like wanting to develop who do I want to be.
Yeah,
Like,
a cowboy cop.
but
He said
being
himself,
smart
Bobby.
enough to decipher what's the most honest cop, like what's the best, you know.
That's Dave Thomas cop.
After college, he signed on with the Jefferson County Sheriff's Department, where he started working in the jail. He talks about basically that like he sees people in there talking shit about on the streets, like what goes down, and then when you really get out there, you see like what's bullshit and what's not, kind of thing. In 1988, he went to work for the city of Wheat Ridge, and he became an undercover narcotics detective. They give you an undercover car, he says. They give you a big flash roll of money, and basically your job is to go out and broker drug deals. He says, I guess there were times in hindsight where you think, boy, that was really dangerous. I can remember a couple of stings where I was wearing a wire, and the bad guys told me, take off your shirt. And the guys are in a van listening. Unless they get the bus signal from you, they're not going to come in. And I've been able to talk my way out. In one particular case, I had a t-shirt on and then a sweatshirt, and I had a wire tape between the two shirts. So when they grabbed me, they saw nothing but skin. The best defense is a good offense, so I pushed them back and got very indignant. And then later you think, had these guys found the wire on me, this was an ongoing cocaine undercover. It would have been very bad.
Oh my God.
Wow.
He is a real Liam Neeson. He's a real cop.
Yeah, smart to like put the
I mean, this is a
recording on
guy-
the sweatshirt. That was,
I
clever
mean,
move.
that's so smart. And also he's protected by like some kind of guy. You know what I mean? Guy, have those events happen where he easily could have died and been found out, but he won none.
Right.
Because his heart was pure.
Well, in 1988, 5 years after that Thane Smeka, Sid Wells murder, he joins the Boulder Police Department. In Boulder, Thomas says, cops were encouraged to crack down on students holding cups of beer or bags of marijuana while turning a blind eye to much larger drug deals. Steve says, I remember at one point in a 90-day period in the early 90s, there were 6 heroin overdoses, 3 or 4 which resulted in death. He says, there's so much dope in Boulder.
People was dying of heroin, and there was dope in Boulder.
And then they turned around and legalized it. Like they were
Boulders
the
of
first
dope.
state
Did
to
they-
legalize
Heroin?
Oh no!
Not
Never
heroin.
Jesus
mind.
Christ.
She's so stupid.
Yeah, fuck you, Ty.
No, you're the one that can't
Oh my
comprehend what he's
God.
clearly fucking saying.
I'm just saying they were progressive with the drug use in Colorado.
Not with heroin, and the police officers, they would not.
They want them to go out to
nothing.
college
They were
students for
letting
minor
people just-
violations. Let's
Yeah.
take these rich kid tickets to fun
She's
stuff.
acting like they're actually doing something about it when they were letting the problem happen.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
With heroin.
So even
Son
after
of
a
a shit.
sting in which he arrested several prostitutes and some pimps and found money, cocaine, and guns, Thomas remembers city officials insisted there was no prostitution problem in Boulder, and further stings were discouraged.
See, he was too good at his fucking job, which was job being police officer.
Yeah, they want you after the smallest. He says even when Thomas was able to make arrests, all too often the DA's office cut deals for the perpetrators. When he protested a plea, Thomas remembers prosecutors would ask him why he wanted to ruin somebody's life.
Oh my God. That is crazy for a prosecutor to be saying when their job is to stop crime. It is not legal to have these drugs, so these drugs are illegal and they are crime. God, that's crazy.
He does recall a time that he said the job did have some high points when he was tasked to guard Salman Rushdie.
Oh, the author.
Yeah, the one with the
one that got
fatwa.
stabbed.
He got the fatwa. Yeah, the one who somebody ended up failing.
The supreme leader in Iran.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we have the footage
fatwa.
over that. But Steve Thomas recalls that like they had him basically hid up in a house in the mountains. And like Steve Thomas has to like basically hang out with him. And he's like, here he is talking to me, just a blue collar cop at 1 o'clock in the morning. He was a very genuine, decent man. He said, I'm a writer of a work of fiction, and because of this, I live in constant fear of assassination.
My God, Steve Thomas is like, it's almost like when someone is a monk and they meditate and they got to go through like a program to reach enlightenment and stuff. Steve Thomas's life just kept bringing him to enlightenment to the point where it positioned him to have these one-on-one conversations with Salman Rushdie for extended periods of time and to be just a deep thinker.
Right.
And be closer to greatness. And then
try to be a good cop. Like that's the thing. He saw on those ride-alongs the cop that you should be.
Exactly.
He deduced it. Once he starts trying to practice it, they're like, there's no prostitution problem. Stop it. We don't need to go after the big heroin stuff. Get these college kids ticketed. This is like a money thing. And then also like, hey, you do arrest these big people. Why do you want to ruin their life? This is going to cost money if this goes to trial, kind of shit.
They're just like grooming a crooked cop. Like
they want him to cut it out because they don't actually, the system, it appears, doesn't actually serve, to like bring justice to things. It instead just tries to chew up people with small offenses and let the most corrupt and criminal aspects of people in society just do their thing
right
without
by.
any sort of punishment.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
No big deal.
He said he was basically involved with 2 shootings during his career. In one, there was a guy who was basically walking down the street carrying a big knife saying, I'm going to kill all the N-words.
Oh my God.
And screaming, get President
What a
Bush out
class.
here because somebody's going to die today.
Oh my God.
He says that basically their standoff with him started moving down the street and for some reason he fixated on him. Oh. And so Steve Thomas basically like shot him in the hip, like groin area.
Shot him in the groin.
And the guy didn't even like flinch. Like it just went like Steve Thomas didn't even realize he like shot him kind of
Oh
thing.
my God. He was like superhuman zombie.
And the guy basically looks at him and he goes like, he points at his forehead and he goes, no, put one right here.
Oh my God.
Kind of thing.
Yikes.
So basically he did end up like charging and I think they ended up like getting him tackled and arrested kind of thing.
Okay.
He ended up being recommended for the Medal of Valor.
What?
After this incident, a police committee nominated Thomas for the Medal of Valor, but the nomination was blocked by then police chief Tom Kobe, who said he refused to recognize a police officer for using deadly force against a citizen.
Tom Kobe cockblocked the recommendation.
The current chief at the time blocked it.
Wow. Oh my God.
What a dick move.
People are so mean to stay.
He had his second shooting occurred in 1993 when an armed man barricaded himself inside a trailer. Having already shot at his wife and daughter, he came outside several times, pointing his gun to his own head and chest. When he pointed the gun at Thomas, Thomas shot him. Immediately afterward, rather than talking to the cops about what happened, Chief Kobe went to the hospital to visit the suspect.
To visit the suspect.
Didn't even talk to the cops first.
Wow.
Immediately goes to the hospital
Fight.
to talk to the suspect.
Kobe 2020. Oh, what the fuck are you doing?
And then we get to December 26th, 1996.
5 years before 9/11.
Brief aside from Steve Thomas, because he wasn't involved the first day of the JonBenet murder investigation.
No, he weren't.
Which again originally started as the JonBenet ransom investigation,
Kidnapping.
which involves now the FBI because ransom is a federal thing.
That's right.
Exactly. So Ron Walker was there and at the Boulder headquarters helping consult. He eventually arrived.
Okay.
But
He
right
was,
off the
he was
bat,
FBI.
who?
Ron Walker.
Ron Walker. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We've played clips of him before talking about how it's just like, it seemed like they were being handled with kid gloves, which is what I'm going to talk about here, where Commander John Ella, who was actually on vacation at the time, had apparently advised the officers responding to the Ramsey kidnapping to not treat them as suspects. They are victims.
The victims of the Ramsey.
Before they even go there.
Well,
Before they even go
thought
there.
it was kidnapped.
He's on vacation, and the lieutenant detective, detective sergeant Larry Mason.
Laurie Metcalf.
He was the one that was in charge. He's the one right below the other guy.
Uller.
Huh?
Was it
John Ella.
Ella,
He's right
John
below
Ella.
Ella. Sorry, yeah. Donna gave us an edible.
All right. I'm picturing John Ella looks almost like a David Strathairn.
Like a what?
Like he looks like David Strathairn.
Nah, he looks like Rory
Cochran.
Cochran because that's who's going to be playing him.
Rory Cochran.
Yeah, I thought it was the Wire guy. It's not. It's
Who is it?
Rory Cochran. He's gonna have like a bushy mustache.
No.
So
Show me a picture.
apparently he was like an old school guy who was like, you don't question his ways.
All right.
And Detective Sergeant Larry Mason, who was in charge at the time, he was actually trained for a little bit at Quantico.
Oh.
And so it's like he wanted certain things done on this.
Okay.
And again, he didn't know that all of his deputies had been advised basically to treat the Ramseys with.
Oh my God! With
With
kid
kid
gloves
gloves,
to treat
exactly.
them like they're
Right.
victims because
Looking back at the day, it's like, oh, this is so weird. That
Which is also, I mean, let's be real for a minute. I mean, when you think of almost any time there is some sort of, especially involving children, like some sort of crime or investigation or something, some crisis or whatever, like. How often do the parents just get to completely evade suspicion? Like even just like being like before you even get to the crime scene, it's like they
why are you
not
even being
suspects.
told that? Like,
Yeah,
it's the
why
thing
you
of
even know
like,
that?
if you got like drones, why are you even implanting in
Yeah.
their mind the idea of like, oh shit, I was gonna go there and not question it anyways. But
Exactly.
like now I'm like, am I complicit in something?
Right.
Like,
If I was some stupid fucking podunk goddamn Boulder, Colorado cop police officer, then I got my Kwanzaa donut, and then I'm arriving to the scene of this crime early in
But
the
it was
morning.
'cause they're wealthy.
But I'd be going up there, and if I wasn't told nothing, and then I like saw the people, like I might even see certain things that like suggest that they're guilty, or like maybe they were like crackheads or something, and I'd be like the first like upon like first like the first time seeing them, I'd be like, oh my God, they probably stole the kid because they're crackheads.
I think
like
it would
there's
be
no reason not to.
It'd be the neighbors. That's what because that'd be your first instinct when you get there. You want to secure a possible crime scene.
Well,
so
they
it's like that's what they
she
would.
was missing at first.
But that's what I mean. Is like that's what the responding officers would ignore when you get there. When you see all of these people moving about the house, you almost start to feel weird about how you're supposed to respond to the situation because not only did he say to basically treat them with kid gloves, he did remind them that they're like very wealthy people. And who knows if he mentioned that they also were like work for Lockheed Martin, who was like basically I think the second largest employer in the state behind the state of Colorado.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So
Lockheed Martin, they do shit. They do planes and alien stuff at night.
and again,
Yeah.
Mason didn't know this. He also tried to request that they get search dogs, which a request which Ella denied.
He denied it.
He ended up denying the request. Yeah.
That's crazy when you got
What?
a little girl missing and you like people follow the sense
Right.
all the time.
You should want like everyone to know, so everyone could be on the look and watching for her.
And maybe
but
they could have found
instead,
out
while
you're
the scents
giving
are
them a
freshest.
beat to like figure stuff out before they decide what they want to share with everybody.
Right. And that's the
Like,
thing is like maybe it was like, oh, they didn't want it to find the body early.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Because like again,
That's
it's
where my
not-
mind goes to.
It's not talked about a lot. Like in the like timeline of events of what was going on is currently Ella called everybody back to headquarters except for Linda Arndt.
Oh, yeah.
To go and be there for the meeting with Ron Walker, the FBI person.
Oh, that's right.
That is where they found out that the ransom pad was written on Patsy's
that's
notepad.
right.
Right.
And she had written in it, and they immediately, Ron Walker's like, an FBI agent is saying, you need to get a search warrant for this house.
Yeah.
The second he says that, within, I'd say, a span of like 20 to 30 minutes, is when the Ramsey John goes and discovers his daughter,
Where it's
turning this now into a
crime.
homicide.
A homicide.
A homicide, a crime scene, but a homicide that
Yeah.
doesn't involve the FBI anymore.
so it's no
Right.
longer in the federal jurisdiction.
And
it
we
goes
tainted
back
it.
to Colorado.
We tainted it with the throwing the blanket on her, moving her twice. Linda Arndt moved the second time, but again, this confusing thing where she's been now trying to page people because Larry Mason, who I've talked about, says he recalled getting a call or like a page from her
From Linda
saying
Arndt.
emergency, like about 20 to 30 minutes after they arrived back at headquarters because Ella called them all back.
Oh my God. And at the same time, then like Patsy, she does that whole Lazarus thing where she's like basically also
All
further
over the body.
contaminating the body with all her
Show.
touching and crying and blah, 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 blah.
Even though the blanket already did that, and John even moving already did that. and then taking the tape
But
off.
that alone is like changing the crime scene and making it possible for them to not ever be able to like accuse them because they're like they could always say in the court system like you don't have enough evidence. The DNA was compromised.
My DNA's on there because I was hugging my dead daughter trying to bring
The whole
life
thing
as a
was
Christian.
compromised.
It doesn't matter if it's them. Like what matters is the police. That's why they get to blame them instead.
But and that's the thing is like, what if they weren't given that order to treat them not as like what? Because you blame it on the inexperience, but it's like you're gonna do what
that seems deliberate.
You're gonna do what your commander says,
right?
And who's already superseding the sergeant without him even knowing it by telling you to treat them, not as suspects,
and also that they're wealthy. To be saying that to the people, it's like establishing that it's like already like there's something to insinuating about like the connections they have, or maybe he's friends with them. It almost doesn't even matter, but like they got a completely different treatment, and also got that request denied for the search hounds, where if the hounds had found her body like 3 hours earlier, like the police weren't called off from the house until after the time passed at 10 a.m. for the supposed ransom call.
Right.
The kidnappers never called, but then it's like, well, she might have been found like at 8 a.m. She might have been found at 8:30.
And where would she have been found?
Yes.
Would she have possibly been found in the same place before? Well, because the thing is, a lot of people speculate that like John possibly separately. Part of Steve Thomas's theory is that John found it separately before, like he started to figure out the whole situation when he read the ransom note. But at the time where he disappeared, probably from Linda Arndt's view, is where he believes that John maybe found her, and that's where his part
of the
crime took in. That he moved it where he thought maybe this wasn't good enough.
Which that's what I also believe in, because I think that like during that time where he was unaccounted for, where there's the entrance to the basement near his office, there was an hour period where also his friend was going to get those photos developed or something like that.
But also Fleet had looked in that room earlier, and he didn't see anything. He didn't turn on the light. But he's very sure that pile, of clothes where JonBenet and everything wasn't there.
And then he's also the one who happens to be with John, Ramsey, when Ramsey finds her body in that very same room, after trying to almost point out to things like, oh, you see that plot point? You see that broken window? You see blah, blah, like, you know what I mean?
Right. It came from a higher up the chain. Someone saying like they get a pass. They get more time to decide how they want to handle it, like just regardless, no questions asked, like this has happened, like, but these people,
you get someone
they get it,
yeah, someone at the top of the chain who says, don't do everything that I've trained you to do in this kind of instance,
exactly,
and
denying requests that would expedite this whole thing, and would have changed the thing that you're being criticized for years later. Because also the other thing that happened was like, we know that they found the body, but then what happened was that Mason also requested to have the Ramseys interviewed separately. Like he wanted to make sure
on the day of,
he's like, no matter what, we need to get them separate interviewed. A request what Ella denied. So,
he denied that one too.
He denied that request.
So Ella keeps denying everything that would have actually helped. Even help the Boulder Police Department do what we also always hear criticisms of things that they didn't do, and it's always shown that like, oh, they mishandled the case, they didn't secure the site, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, blah blah blah. Like they're completely incompetent, blah blah blah. When it's literally you have someone who is acting boss there, but with certain requests that he must make to the chief who's on vacation, and is just spouting like the chief keeps denying those things. So those things would have been done if the chief, he wasn't the one like in constant charge, source of the denial.
And he wasn't told to treat him with kid gloves. Again, this is something he found out later, that all of the people under him. That's how they were approaching the crime scene.
See?
The people under him, he found that out later. And Mason will end up suing Ella too. There's a few other people that do that too, but he ends up suing him because within days of that whole snafu with what's going on with the thing where Ella wanted this, and basically Ella felt challenged because he was from Quantico and he thought he knew best kind of thing. And it's like, no, we're going to do this my way kind of thing.
You're not going to follow protocol like you would like with any other situation.
Right. Ella ends up basically leaking to the press, or saying that he's been leaking stuff to the press. And like, it's a thing where it kind of damages his reputation.
Ella's been leaking stuff to the press?
No, Ella says that Mason has been leaking stuff to the press.
Oh, okay, I get it now.
And I think he puts that out in the
Just
press.
like how they tried to damage Steve Thomas's reputation. I remember when they were like, "Oh, like, why is he writing books?"
And we're gonna get that's Hunter. That's Alex Hunter.
Oh yeah.
So Thomas worked for the Hill for 3 years before going into undercover narcotics. He was still long-haired and bearded when he was called in on December 28th, 1996, to help solve the murder of JonBenet. But he says by the time Thomas entered the case, the crime scene had been almost irretrievably contaminated. Dozens of people have walked through the Ramsey house. Key evidence, the pad of paper on which a long rambling ransom note was written, a suitcase in the basement, had been handled and moved. John Ramsey, who found the body, had ripped off the tape covering her mouth, carried her upstairs in the living room. Both parents had hugged the body, which was then covered with a blanket. If the circumstances hadn't been so grave, the extent of the law enforcement bungling might have seemed comic.
Oh my God,
Which, what we just talked about is the thing.
Right.
But now you're brought in to be another little pawn in the case. And Thomas will later talk about Ella favorably, which is surprising. At one point, according to Thomas's book, a crime scene tech dusted the Ramsey home for fingerprints, while a victim's assistant followed behind, busily tidying up with spray cleaner and cloth.
Oh my fucking God.
You guys are worried it's an intruder, but you're cleaning everything.
And-
Like what?
yeah.
They're
Like,
cleaning
what?
the entire. I mean, they've got this place full of people, and it's pandemonium, and they're literally cleaning the fucking surfaces that could provide any sort. When I hear this shit about DNA, or like, oh, blah 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 blah, you know what I know about DNA? I know that they were trying to wipe DNA off of the whole crime scene and the entire house the day it happened.
Right.
They had time to do it.
And
they
like-
were given time to do it.
And we talked about the Nidra thing, where just a few days after the second day into them having the crime scene, Nidra comes in with a police jacket, and she's allowed to just go take items willy-nilly.
Not Nidra, it was Pam.
Pam, I'm so sorry. Yeah, thank you.
It was
Gosh.
Pam, Bobby.
I'm sorry, it was the gum.
See, it's that
It's okay. You keep them
dementia.
straight.
But we
It's
talked
good.
about that. We talked about that before.
Yeah.
But Thomas, it became very clear to him that like the DA was basically agreeing with the Ramseys more than them.
Very clear, very obvious, very corrupt.
So Ella, Commander Ella's kind of fucked up the case while he's on vacation.
Where was he
and-
on vacation, Bobby?
I don't know actually.
Someplace warm,
I don't know.
like
I
Hawaii.
didn't look into it, but
We were
it's-
gonna go to Hawaii one
It's
time.
interesting that again, giving the command from on vacation, which means like, who did you?
Yeah,
like,
you have
what-
no eyes on the scene, and yet you're telling people
Why are
don't
you
bring a
giving
search
orders?
dog like that.
What kind of calls were made during the night, which we're gonna get to.
Like, for all they knew, that she could have been in the woods, dead, frozen hypothermias, or something like
No
that.
one's looking though.
Well, unless you already knew.
Yeah, exactly. That's the
And
only
it was
thing.
like,
It's
you're
why
gonna
would you-
hinder any finding of the actual thing until it's like, oh no, now the FBI guy who would supersede me
Yeah.
is recommending you start getting search warrants. I no longer control I no longer can have you have the mindset of being, don't treat them as suspects when a guy that supersedes me
Yeah.
at a federal level is saying get a search warrant. How
take
can
over the
I get
case.
it back in my control? Find the body.
Find the
Find
body.
the body,
Right.
John. And
Find the
again,
body.
Linda said John's been on that phone a lot.
Yeah, she was
during-
like, there was an hour he was unaccounted for, according to her. She was the only police officer on the scene.
But even when she could account for him, she talks about the moments where she's seen him.
yeah, that's right.
Saying where he was constantly on the phone.
planning
meanwhile, the
his next moves.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because I mean the Ramseys had multiple other of their friends there,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not talking to none of them.
And who did he call? That's coming up. We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
All right.
So Thomas recognized basically that the Ramseys had lawyered up immediately. We know this from Hal Haddon's oral biography of himself, where he was also on vacation. Just Lane's lawyer, the head guy of that firm, Haddon, Morgan, and Foreman. Haddon, Morgan, and Foreman. I always forget you,
self-sucker.
Foreman. I'm sorry. But he got the call.
those people.
He said on vacation on the 27th. We know this because Mike Bynum is the one that recommended that they need to lawyer up. There was the whole Christmas walk where him and they went on a stroll and Fleet started to get shut out kind of thing.
Yep, I remember that vividly.
So on the 27th, we know Linda Aunt went to go talk to the Ramseys because they were staying with their friends, and the family doctor was there. John Ramsey, the family doctor told police Patsy was too overwhelmed to see him. On the 28th, prosecutor Pete Hofstrom informed the cops that there would be no Ramsey interviews because the Ramseys were leaving for Atlanta. The Ramseys had gone to the Criminal Justice Center that day and given such non-testimonial evidence as fingerprints and blood and hair samples. Hofstrom suggested the police fax their questions to the family.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Like, we got a funeral to go to in Atlanta.
Which you let Nidra show up to your crime scene where you're confused about whether or not your officers are like, hey, should we be letting
Pam,
this...
Bobby.
Pam.
Did I say need you again?
Yeah, you did.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry.
It's
I think it's
okay.
a tumor.
I think so too.
But I'm only smelling toast as strudels. It's not like toast. It's
Okay.
like the icing. It's the
I mean,
strawberry.
are you
one.
happy with your life?
Is that a tumor?
Did you live a good life?
If I want to die now,
I mean, if you die right now, I mean, just
would I know?
I mean, like,
I want to know the
would
answer.
you be pleased with yourself?
Well,
you know,
if there's a heaven and I could go up there and be like, JonBenet,
Yeah.
what happened? And she's like, I am so sick of this question. But
Yeah.
But this is what happened.
you're never going to believe this.
yeah, yeah, and you know,
It was fucking Santa Claus.
so. I see, and
He's so light on his feet, more than you'd
play
expect.
with me, Bobby.
I'm just joking.
Took me a long time.
No. Donna, click out of that. Thank you.
Donna,
You don't
what the
want
fuck?
Windows 11.
Oh, sorry.
No, thank you, Bill Gates.
What were we talking about?
We were talking about the fact that they lawyered up, all right? And then that Pete Hofstrom, who was the deputy chief DA, he was right under Alex Hunter. He told the police that they should fax their questions to the Ramseys. Basically, you already let them go from the first day.
Crazy.
And they did this whole thing where, and again, the Ramseys have always proclaimed, and we're going to get to that with the Larry King thing, where they say we cooperated with the police. Actually, no, we'll just play that now.
Send
Where they're
in
cooperating.
via
Here we go.
writing.
Here we go.
This man has harmed us deeply. He's failed in his responsibilities as a police officer. He's failed us. He's failed JonBenet. He's failed the community of Boulder. It's not pleasant. No.
Steve,
Well,
how do you
let's
respond?
talk about failure. Let's talk about parents who I feel have failed their daughter, who, after this became a homicide, of course they cooperated when it was a kidnapping, but after it became a homicide, Patsy, you waited 4 months before you came in and talked to the Boulder Police Department and answered questions.
No, Steve, I did not.
Well, tell me when. I was there every day. Tell me how many hours.
Were you in our home that day?
How many
Were you in
hours?
our home the day
Let's
JonBenet
read
was
some,
missing?
How many hours?
press
did you
releases
Hold on,
spend?
hold on,
Steve.
rather than talk over each other. You say they didn't appear. You say you did appear with the Boulder Police?
Yes, I did.
And how would he not know about
At the
it?
Boulder Police Department. I
wasn't
don't
there
remember
that
you
day.
there.
Oh, you weren't there. You weren't there the day they came.
What day did you
You were
come to the
not
Boulder
there.
Police Department?
Let's
Patsy?
deal with facts. December 27th, 1997, Commander Eller released a press release. The family has been cooperative and our investigation is continuing. December 29th, 1996, the family continues
meant 96,
I meant
right?
96, sorry. The family continues to cooperate with the police investigation, although the police have not yet conducted interviews with the father and mother. They have been in no condition to be interviewed up to this point. We spent days with the police. We gave them everything they asked for.
What days was that, John?
Well, let's talk about it. It was the 26th. It was the
Before-
27th.
before
it
there
was
was
the
a
28th.
homicide.
We gave
He's saying
blood
And
samples.
let me respond, Larry. When he says they came in on the 28th, they came in to give what's called non-testimonial evidence. They knew through their lawyers, I'm sure, that. And let me finish, John. May I finish,
Yes, you
please?
may. Go ahead.
They had no alternative. They had to come in on the 28th. On the 27th, two detectives went to their house to schedule an interview. They didn't speak with Patsy. They asked when they could arrange to come in. Let's cut to the chase here. You waited until April 30th
let's
of
really
1997,
cut to the
Mr.
chase.
Ramsey.
Oh my god,
Right.
they are fucking liars.
They've always said they've like cooperated with the police, and John has to pull out his reading glasses to like look at his.
To look like
his
he's taking
bullet
it
points.
serious.
acting like he's fucking Matlock or something, but
Right.
then he stutters over the shit. He always does that.
And that was from the unprecedented Larry
God.
King Live, where after Thomas has already left the department, which we're gonna get to, he goes on to face them. But
It's a juggernaut title match, like a boxing match. We did an episode about it.
it's unprecedented. And Larry King, you'll even mention it. We'll have another clip for that.
Evidence?
I want you to get
Let's
into your
let's
theory.
talk.
Let me
Let's
hear-
talk evidence.
Let
me
me
get a-
hear
Let's
your
hear the
theory.
theory.
Let me,
We'll
let me
start
get a
from-
break, and since we don't have anybody arrested in this, we don't have a trial, we're sort of taking you into evidence here. I feel like it's law and order. Your evidence will be presented to the Ramseys. They can respond, and we'll do it right after this.
But Bobby, I gotta tell you, it's crazy because here's Steve Thomas going, "Why did you wait like basically like 4 months or whatever to talk to the police?" And then the Ramsey's like, "That's a lie. We talked on this date and this date, blah blah blah." And then Steve Thomas is clearly going like retorting back with like, "No, you talked to us when it was still a kidnapping or like a ransom sort of case."
Yeah, she's like, you weren't there in that house when the detectives were under the influence that you're not supposed to treat them. Where then you left it to where there was only fucking one.
Yeah,
Linda
yeah.
Hunt.
Meanwhile, all the evidence is being fucking like Lysoled over and shit.
And her instinct is immediately, oh my God, there's something very wrong is going on here, and I'm in danger. I've been left alone. I've been trying to page people.
She's 1 against 8. because
Ella's
Ramsey's
running the
prince
strings
of it.
behind Mason's back.
And none of the actual stuff is being out. And then they try to say, oh, on December 27th or 28th or whatever, like we cooperated. But it's like that's what you doing the shit your lawyers told you to do.
That's the same day too. The 28th is when they're saying they got the notice from Hofstra from saying the Ramseys are going to Georgia. You need to basically fax your questions. And I believe, honestly, I think it's the same day because it's 2 days. Yeah. That is the same day that Pam went and did a thing.
Jesus
So they're getting this
Christ.
conflicting information like, hey, fax your questions. And then you got Pam walking in with a Boulder PD jacket,
Just
collecting
taking
potential evidence.
American Girl dolls and all kinds of shit when she was supposed to be just be grabbing clothes for them to have for their funeral
Right.
in
She
Atlanta.
grabbed a lot more than that.
And then so the funeral, this is the next thing because we don't want to go too far to when they got interrogated. So Steve Thomas is still a part of this. They get word about the whole funeral incident with Fleet White and the Ramseys.
Oh yeah, Papa.
Because we've talked about it before, but I've talked with somebody now on Reddit who's provided somebody that's provided more sources on it that shows that there was more to that altercation than what's actually been reported, even from the Whites. That the Roswell, Georgia PD were actually dispatched to the home to respond to this incident and spent about 6 hours
Shut the fuck up.
at that home.
Oh my
God,
God.
Bobby.
So this incident that we've talked about before, where Don Paul left the Christmas party on Christmas Eve, the next time he would see Fleet White was in Georgia for JonBenet's funeral. And supposedly the Fleet was coming to confront the Ramseys, and the confrontation got so explosive that we know that Don Pa started arming himself in preparation for Fleet's arrival. So we've speculated that, something maybe from the Christmas party fed into this, but we never knew that the police were called out for this and that they stayed there for 6 hours.
It was a big domestic.
This was discovered from Stephen Singula, he was an author who wrote this book back in the 90s about JonBenet. It should be, I think it's called Presumed Innocence.
Okay.
And basically he talks about he had a conversation with Hunter, and he said Hunter said that John Ramsey and White had gotten into a bad argument in Georgia when they had taken JonBenet there for the burial. The altercation, unreported in the media, had become so heated the DA continued that the police had to be called in. The cops stayed at the house, Hunter said, for about 6 hours. 6 hours? 6 hours. That's a very long time. Yes, it is, Hunter replies.
What the fuck were they fighting about?
I don't know, but Steve Thomas and a few of the other detectives, Tom Trujillo, Ron Gosage, and Jane Harmer, they left Boulder for Atlanta. They were going to do some background work.
Detective work.
And also, though, they wanted to get more information about what happened with this exchange.
Oh my God.
Which no one's really fully spoken about it. Larry Mason was interviewed about it, but he doesn't fully say, he's like, yeah, we went there to do some background work. And
They never say what they found?
I don't know. I think it might be the whole tit for tat thing with the Whites, because the Whites still never fully cooperated with the police because he wanted Alex Hunter out. He didn't want to give his
He
testimony.
didn't trust anything. But God, what
And
a
I think it's an important part of the
tangle
case with this fight, which again will play into our Christmas party episode. Which
Can't
is
wait
coming
for
up.
it.
'Tis the season because we're getting there very quickly.
I can't wait for it, man. It's been such a hard year.
But Steve Thomas, trying to analyze just the basics of this crime scene that he knows has already been tainted. We know in 2016 he spoke to the CBS doc that got sued that we talked about. Here's him in regards to that.
So what did your investigation reveal about Patsy's
I
involvement?
think she was the author of that ransom note. We know that was her pad. Her fingerprints were on that pad. The Sharpie pen, we located that and ink matched it to the ransom note, which bore handwriting characteristics that some experts said were remarkably similar to Patsy's. If we found that body of evidence in the possession of any third party, that's pretty damning evidence. But in this case, for some reason, the district attorney wanted to create some parallel universe why it wasn't hers. I find it preposterous.
Oh my God. He's so smart. That's a big word.
Preposterous.
Preposterous.
It's a long one.
And we've talked about him before, so you know that he was very much a proponent of, if you wrote the letter, he thinks
You
that's the
gotta
most
hand it
likely the murderer.
Oh my
Whoever-
God.
yeah.
And for
Whoever
some
wrote the
reason,
letter.
the evidence points Patsy's way. He's like, if it was someone else, a third party, he would have followed that lead. But it didn't
Right.
lead that way.
Right.
And so he also describes basically they were hamstrung by the DA at every turn.
Did you feel you were hamstrung from the beginning?
That's the understatement of the day, Jim.
And okay, so who was responsible?
The district
for that?
attorney.
The district
Yeah,
attorney.
of course. We never got search warrants for phone records, for credit card records. We were forced to search tens of thousands of Home Depot receipts by hand.
The DA never gave you any kind of warrants to get credit card records?
No.
And that would just be standard practice.
Standard.
In a case
Phone
like this.
records. The police department engaged me to conduct the first official interviews with the Ramseys, and I was, as was the FBI, furious when we learned that they had been provided copies of police reports to prepare for a police interview, just contradictory to everything.
Just upside down. That left is right.
Right.
Black is white.
Finally, April '97, they get them in there, and they don't even know at the time where it's like everything's going on behind these people's backs, where it's like so hard to do your job right when it's rigged against you, kind of thing. They've been provided police reports, kind of thing.
Basic police work things where people know that's what police are supposed to do.
The protocols, they they didn't follow them. Like,
Right? The frustrations of the Ramsey case took a serious toll on Steve Thomas. On a May morning, he found a mutilated cat outside his house. His garden hose had been sliced and his wife's flower garden completely wrecked. Newly married at the beginning of the investigation, he rarely saw his wife. When his father was rushed to a Denver hospital with heart failure, Thomas was in Atlanta questioning associates of the Ramseys. Instead of rushing back, he continued his work. His father did recover, though.
Oh my God.
the poor cat.
This guy's like an insider Russell Crowe guy. He's like, you're in something that's bigger than you, True Detective.
Like, yeah, that's the thing. Intimidation tactics. Right after your whole,
Right.
you interview them.
Makes you think twice about what you say and who you say it to. Like,
it's like, we know where you live, and
Right.
we're gonna,
And I also read a recent thing that I hadn't talked about before, that Judith Phillips, the photographer,
Oh yeah.
who once she'd
Todét.
spoken out, she was the thing that next time she ran into Susan Stein. Susan Stein basically harassed her, like, we're gonna sue, you're gonna get sued.
Oh my God.
much for talking about like you're done kind of thing.
She's so nasty.
But she's a little, well, that's what they said. She's Patsy's little bulldog,
She sure is.
as we've talked about before. And
6 nipples.
Who?
I'm
I
just
thought
talking
it
about
was
Susan
8.
Stein. How many dogs? How many nipples can
I
a
thought it was
dog
8.
got, Bobby?
8
They got
nipples.
8 nipples. Donna, look at
That's
us.
female dogs, right? Yeah.
Female dogs, male dogs probably have a lot of nipples too.
I haven't seen nipples on my
I
dog.
think, is it different per animal?
Do
Like,
dogs have
I don't
nipples?
know. I'm just not realizing. I don't think I've seen nipples on my male dogs.
No. I
would've
mean, you
seen
think
that.
they would have like big, like stupid dog nipples.
Right,
You know
that's
what I mean?
a good point.
See, that's a good argument for trans people. Where it's like we were made also with nipples too, where it's
yeah,
more confusing. We're like, oh, there's not,
We're actually all one sex, and
Yeah.
we're just different versions of it. Versus there's a whole other sex that doesn't have nipples.
Oh, wow.
And none of us is that.
So, but in the summer of 1997, okay, Steve Thomas has been talking to Jeff Shapiro, who we know is like the Globe reporter.
Oh yeah, Jeff Shapiro.
Jeff Shapiro. But according to claims made by Globe reporter Jeff Shapiro, Hunter's relationship with the media bordered on possible criminal wrongdoing. Kobe didn't believe Hunter would do anything unprofessional, so Thomas was authorized to get Shapiro's comments on tape. Thomas and Gosage, another detective, secretly recorded a conversation with Shapiro in Thomas's undercover car. The conversation revealed that Shapiro spoke to Hunter at least every other day. Shapiro said Hunter fed him confidential evidentiary information and leads for stories. He's a Globe reporter. In return for tips, Shapiro performed secret assignments for the DA. Hunter wanted the Globe to do a story on Eller, the commander. He offered to turn over Eller's confidential personnel file and mentioned charges of incompetence and sexual harassment.
Oh my God.
Shapiro found no basis for these allegations. Bill Wise, who was Alex Hunter's top aide, also released confidential information about the ransom note to Craig Lewis of the Globe. Shapiro revealed that Hunter, Bill Wise, and another Ramsey attorney, William Gray, owned a building together.
Shut the fuck out.
Hunter ridiculed both Ella and Kobe during conversations with Shapiro. Shapiro said that Hunter also had a tight relationship with the Globe's editor, Tony Frost.
Not with Tony Frost too.
Man, he's got him on speed dial. Like,
It's a whole web of corruption.
Right.
And you can't. You mean what the fuck? So Thomas learns all this stuff.
Steve learns all this stuff, and then Kobe from recording the conversation with the Globe guy secretly. Kobe ended up chewing Thomas out for recording the conversation with Shapiro and ordered that the tapes be destroyed.
Oh my God.
Destroy evidence.
So
Wow.
Ella gave him permission, but then Chief ended up finding out, and he's like, "Nope."
Holy shit. Wow. This is bone tingling. I need to.
Ella during this time ends up being sued by Mason and Arndt for basically outing publicly that their image is, not as good detectives. They're basically inept, damaging kind of their reputation. And Arndt accuses him of basically trying to silence them. by violating a First Amendment right and not allowing them to speak out to the press, especially when she's being shit all over with stuff that's like probably from a personnel file.
Oh my God, yeah.
So she's not able to defend herself, and they're able to paint this narrative
I mean, what a fucking nightmare
of the police. Yeah.
for these people.
In October, Commander John Ella is replaced by Mark Beckner.
Mark
Beckner, which we know he did the AMA later. Thomas summarizes that as being a huge blow to the police. Losing Commander Ella, he says, meant we were losing our chief defender at a critical time in the investigation. Eller had neither wanted, respected, nor feared the DA's people. With his removal, we felt terribly exposed. He feels Beckner is not willing to go to bat for the detectives in the same way Eller was, and eventually begins to show indications of being swayed by the DA's office, which frustrates detectives.
What a sinking ship.
Thomas asked Beckner if he thought that the Ramseys did it, and he says yes. He believes one or both were involved and that there were probable cause for an arrest, but they didn't have it beyond a reasonable doubt. Thomas tells him there's a mountain of circumstantial evidence and a good prosecutor could do it, but Beckner is skeptical and seems almost resigned.
Oh my God, yeah.
November of 97, they acquire the cellular and home telephone records of the Ramseys for December 96 and find nothing worthwhile. Thomas is suspicious that the months preceding December are busy, but there are no calls made in December and remains skeptical to cite the phone records representative saying that there was no way the calls or the records could be altered.
That is such fucking bullshit. So they're trying to say that when they finally got the phone records, there were no calls being made in December from their phone
From the
line.
cellular line.
Right.
Even though
I got a different phone.
on seeing them on the, yeah, so it's like...
Even though we've seen John on phones and we've seen they had a Christmas party. Of course they were on phones. They were, getting things all organized and shit. That's
But
fucking
not that
stupid.
one.
That's fucking liar, succotash.
So in January of 98, this is just a couple months later, the Ramseys start turning over clothing that they purportedly wore on the December 25th and 26th, but that some of the clothes appear newly purchased and suspicious in sizing. One of the items, however, yields evidentiary value, Patsy's red and black checkered jacket. Fibers from the jacket were found by CBI labs to be chemically and microscopically consistent with 4 fibers that had been collected earlier from the sticky side of the black tape that had been placed on JonBenet's mouth.
Sticky!
Oh.
You know that song by Tyler, the Creator? I think that every time we hear the word sticky.
That's a good song. It's a good anthem.
So they found fibers from Patsy's jacket on sticky parts of her mouth.
On the duct tape
that she put
on the duct tape
on JonBenet.
that was placed freshly over JonBenet, where again the snot was
And
under
she
the
was
tape, her
wearing
dried snot,
what she wore at the party.
That's crazy.
and it had a perfect lip imprint on it. But Thomas learns that there was a deal that was made with the Ramseys in order for the police to acquire the clothing. Some photographs, their asking price, according to Beckner, had been the evidence photographs of the Ramseys in December, full access to all exculpatory evidence concerning the Ramseys, and for the police department to state publicly that there had been no evidence of prior vaginal abuse of JonBenet.
I'm confused. What does that mean?
The Ramseys made a deal with the police department. Their terms were that they wanted access to all the evidence and for them to publicly state that there was no prior sexual abuse.
So even the times when we've been like, well, they said that there wasn't enough of something that suggested a sexual assault or some shit like that. Basically, that could have been part of some kind of arrangement.
Right.
There's a deal they made where they got clothes and they're saying certain fibers match, maybe it doesn't, but did they even get the right stuff?
Goodness.
The detectives ended up having a farewell lunch for Ella, Commander John Ella, who got fired. Ella tells Steve Thomas the real reason he was fired was he authorized for Thomas and Goshas to secretly record Shapiro.
Oh my God.
The one that Kobe ended up being
falls
pissed
on the
about
sword.
and asked him to destroy the tapes because it turned out the DA had been basically
That's what got Ella
hanging
fired?
out with Shapiro all the time.
Oh my God.
That's what he says got him fired. But also, it's very curious that Thomas looks upon him as, because he was being sued at the time too. And even in like a press release thing I have, he talks about the fact that he was also like looking for other jobs. This is like during the investigation.
Ella was looking for different jobs?
And I think it's like he already did his dirty work at the beginning.
Maybe he felt bad about it.
It's already, and maybe,
Yeah.
So
He was
he's like,
like,
I
oh my
got to
God.
give some sort of pushback, guys. Like
yeah.
I'm dying over here.
Like, I gotta save my soul somehow.
And then they finally kicked him
one
out
last little
for
thing.
doing too much, where it's like, hey, you let Steve
what the fuck,
know too
bro?
much that Hunter's been hanging out with Shapiro.
Make it, let him record it, and then it's like, get out of here. And my God, and it's just, it's like, whose marching orders are these? How much power do powerful people got?
And that's the thing is now they got Beckner in as their new commander, and he's thinking that Beckner is not going to go along with them because he seems to be too aligned. He said in early meetings, this is in early 98, he said Beckner agrees with Hofstrom against the whites and his own detectives. Thomas wants a special prosecutor for the grand jury, and Beckner just shuts them down, stating in his opinion, the case was winding down.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, motherfucker.
He tells detectives he wants an alibi for every person ever involved with the case, including 80 Ramsey guests at a catered house party in early December. He also starts requiring detectives to chase any and all tips flooding BPD on a daily basis.
Oh, my God. He's a chaos agent.
At this point, Thomas believes Beckner is aligned with Hofstrom and Hunter in his chase to become Boulder's chief of police, and writes, Beckner had done a complete flip-flop. He'd abandoned us, and in my opinion, he never came back. Wow. By the time he gets to March of 1998, Steve Thomas hears that they might be doing a grand jury, but he feels that they're doing it just to tank it. Like it's just a whole elaborate setup, which, spoiler alert, that's what
Here's what they did.
it ends up being.
Yeah, that's what they did. I mean, it was bullshit.
But he got some hope in the fact that he met the Vassar College professor, Donald Foster.
Oh, yeah.
Who would say he's like, I can unequivocally state that, Patsy wrote the note. I'm very sure of it. But Thomas even writes in his book, basically, that they found out from, Jameson that they had communicated with him. She had communicated with him before, and he thought for sure that Jameson was John Andrew.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
right.
they were no longer going to let him appear before the grand jury, which Steve Thomas was like, he thought that was a huge mistake. He thought the fact that because Donald Foster hadn't seen the evidence when he first wrote a letter to Patsy saying like, hey, like I want to help out on this case kind of thing. He hadn't even seen the letter yet. But once he saw it, he was like, I could state that Patsy did it.
Oh, yeah,
thing.
yeah.
He's like, he thinks, if anything, that proves that,
He's impartial.
Exactly.
He went at
He
it
was
where he
willing
wanted to
to-
help solve the case. He's driven by,
He's actually doing his job.
Yeah, and that's why we did with the Unabomber thing. But then for him to switch to Patsy, that means that's just goes to show how strong, his observations were that leans in that direction now.
And so he was disappointed in that. Shortly around that time, Steve goes in, he sits down with Lou Smith at a diner to have coffee.
Oh my God! Two cowboys face off, one versus
The showdown.
Yeah, it's almost like Heat.
It's like Heat.
It's like Heat.
It's like when Robert De Niro and Al Pacino they was in Heat.
They go to
and-
Kate Manalini's. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they sit down. But it's like that, basically. Where,
Panton.
Yeah, what?
They were in Heat.
Oh, no, that's not what that movie's about.
Not like that.
But Steve explains his theory, basically, to Lou Smith. He said that Patsy was exhausted and he thinks she was stressed. He thinks upon returning home from the Whites, she gave JonBenet some pineapple and then put her to bed. At some time, JonBenet woke up after wetting the bed. A red turtleneck was found balled up on the bathroom sink. Thomas believes JonBenet was wearing it when she wet the bed. Patsy exploded over JonBenet's wet bed and slammed her head into a hard surface in the bathroom. JonBenet was unconscious, but her heart was still beating. Patsy believed she was dead. She panicked and decided to cover up what she had done. Patsy moved JonBenet's body to the wine cellar. She realized that a dead body found in the home with no explanation would be suspicious.
It would be suspicious.
So she came up with a diversion, a kidnapping for ransom. So she started writing the note, yada, yada, yada. That explains the whole thing. And then she says, like I said earlier, that John then found out independently while he was reading the ransom note.
Yeah.
That it was like, oh no. And that he then staged it.
See, I think that's very possible. I mean, maybe it was Bert, but maybe it was Patsy.
Tell me exactly, step by step, how you envision.
I wasn't there,
that
Patsy. You were in the home
You
that
must
night.
have conjured something in your head for you to come out and call me a murderer of my child.
Patsy, I think
now
you
I
wrote
want to
the-
hear
I think
1
you wrote the
through
ransom.
10.
I think you heard.
When did I
wrote the
write
ransom
this
note.
ransom
You-
note? Before
you
or
tell
after
me
I
if you
killed
wrote
the
the
child?
ransom
No,
note.
you're the one theorizing here. You tell me.
You were in the house that night.
Steve,
and
you have a
and John,
theory?
you can't say for
Well,
certain.
naturally,
who-
it's circumstantial.
Yeah,
naturally.
and John, you can't say for certain who did or did not kill JonBenet because you have said you were asleep. You cannot say for certain because you weren't there.
I want to hear your theory, Steve.
Wow.
Oh my God.
Jesus. I
And
mean,
it's a good
He's
point.
like, ha ha ha, you got me.
God, I love Steve Thomas. He reminds me of like Atticus Finch.
I think he kind of drops the ball a little bit sometimes on that special because it does kind of like change the subject and shit. And it's like they accuse him of being off topic.
JonBenet, we have had some of the world's best forensics experts look at the evidence. They have told us that JonBenet was strangled to death. The last act that this creature did to our daughter was a vicious blow to the head. That is irrefutable.
That's not consistent with the.
That is not consistent with your theory, and that's my point.
Right, but you're suggesting, if I am hearing you correctly, and let me ask you, why will you not take the FBI polygraph?
Don't change the
subject.
subject.
I'll get back.
Steve.
Get off. I'll get back.
Okay.
there.
Come
Deal with the topic at hand. We're dealing
Let's-
with big
let's-
issues
let's
here.
hear
You have
your
accused
theory.
us.
Let's hear your theory.
You have
Let's
accused
hear your
us
theory,
of
Mr.
murder.
Ramsey.
I think he got too flustered where it's like, that was a good
I mean, yeah,
opportunity that you
would've
could have
been-
taken, but then you went,
I mean, my God, for John Ramsey to be saying the last thing that this person did was hit her in the head.
Like, with such certainty.
Insisting
Yeah.
on the series of events that like certain people like Warner Spitz have disagreed upon and stuff like
He
that.
could have called it back better.
And Steve Thomas even mentions that CASCU, which was the Child Abduction and Serial Killer Unit, had taught him that ransom kidnappers kidnap for financial gain, while pedophile kidnappers kidnap for sexual gratification. The two are mutually exclusive.
They're not the same people.
No, they're not. And
And-
so to even
Dude, for them to be doing both or something, that doesn't exist.
So in June of 1998, the Boulder Police Department, Alex Hunter and his staff, as well as agents from the FBI's Child Abduction and Serial Killer Unit and the CBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, show up to this whole gymnasium to see this giant presentation of why they think they should indict.
Okay.
And this is Steve talking about that we've shown before.
In June of 98, the core team of detectives, along with the FBI agents and the personnel from the DA's office, congregated in a small classroom because we had been suggesting we need a grand jury. People are slamming the doors in our face. We need subpoena power. We need to collect evidence. And I remember leaning against this cinder block wall as your former colleague, Bill Hagmeyer,
He used to be my boss, yeah.
said, and I think I'm quoting verbatim, Mr. District Attorney, no disrespect intended, but a little girl is moldering in the ground and something needs to be done. Are you going to call a grand jury? And I'll never forget Alex Hunter, the elected district attorney's response, I need to get with my people. This is a political decision. I leaned back after working this case for 2 years against that cinder block wall and thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. I won't do this anymore. The next day, the FBI agents who were so vital and integral to this investigation said, we can no longer be a part of this.
Ain't no more.
The FBI dropped out.
They were like, oh, this is corrupt.
And again, Ron Walker, the guy who was in before, where it's like they were already like, hey, this is suspicious. And he even talked about it on that same CBS documentary too, that it's like, this is suspicious. The case then was handed over to the DA's office in preparation for the whole grand jury thing. And that's when they started preparing for the 1998 interviews with the Ramseys.
Okay.
Thomas ended up being upset that Lou Smith got picked to do John Ramsey's interviews.
Oh, yeah,
because he's
yeah.
basically just going to softball it. And they were not allowed to watch Burke's interviews. They were later just sent tapes of the thing, but they weren't allowed to see.
They weren't allowed to be there?
Not even in like the watching room, like, you know, where you
Oh
can
my
watch
God.
a feed or anything like that.
You'd have to watch a tape, which could be manipulated.
Exactly.
The police learn of an internet junkie who has been posting confidential case information online, and Smith admits that he has been in contact with said person. Thomas wonders why the DA's office is zealously chasing leads based on internet junkie speculation rather than the ones involving the police's prime suspects. And I think we all know who that internet junkie probably was. Thomas wanted to watch the delayed video of the Ramsey interviews, which Beckner initially forbids, but reluctantly concedes as long as he doesn't write any reports on the interview.
What the fuck?
This order baffles Thomas, who thinks Beckner is completely sold out to the DA's office.
Sounds like it. What would a sold out person do? Exactly that.
Beckner is named the new police chief of Boulder.
There we go. Quid pro quo. Lots of quid pro quos in this situation. Hey,
Very political.
I do
That's
this,
what it
you do
means
that.
when they're like, it's political. It means
scratch
it's
my balls, I scratch yours.
While they were looking through the interviews, though, they were surprised to learn of John's account that while looking out of Burke's bedroom window with binoculars, he spotted a strange truck parked across the street. This was news to them, and Thomas asked why he waited 18 months to reveal this piece of information instead of informing the cops immediately that morning.
Right.
John also mentions that there was a hang-up phone call, which the phone records do not show.
What the fuck?
wow.
They're just finding like the little final cracks in their whole little fucking ploy to create some sort of alternative like Todét theory.
Right, he's saying JonBenet
there
could
was
not
a
have
truck.
eaten the pineapple after getting home, and she must have eaten it before the party or during the party. He then remarks in retrospect, it was strange that Priscilla White fixed her a plate of cracked crab. He doesn't buy that an intruder would have fed her pineapple and says that he does not recognize the bowl with a spoon. The next day, he retracts that statement on his attorney's advice and suggests the intruder could have indeed fed her the pineapple and that she may have known the intruder. He throws out Santa Bill McReynolds as a possibility.
What the fuck?
I don't know.
John continues to offer up a smorgasbord of suspects that include a cook at Pasta J's restaurant, a striking couple from back east who had been seen in church, his secretary's boyfriend, other church members, business associates, pigsty neighbors, and assorted fringe players. Also implicated is Pasta J. Alowski.
Going against the pig neighbors?
And also Pasta J.
And Pasta J?
Who, according to John, possibly owned a stun gun. His friend and John Osley
His current
partially
business, like what the fuck? Like they
owns
still do
that.
business together.
They still do, and it's like, hey, can I just,
Let me just throw you in
Throw
there
this
to kind of
bullet out
show
there.
that I'm not just picking
Just
people
for
I
the
don't like or
story.
whatever.
Smith asks in the interview, I'm going to take you at your word. You're a Christian. Will you swear to God you didn't do this? To which John says he swears to God he and Patsy were not involved and that they loved their children. In response to Smith's religious angle, Michael Caine asked John to recite his favorite Bible passage, which John cannot.
Oh my fucking guy.
Thomas says he felt Smith was being totally used.
Lou Schmidt is not just
my
being
God.
used. Lou Schmidt is part of it. I'm so fucking sick of Lou Schmidt people playing the feeble old man with too religious to be corrupt. Lou Schmidt going, I'm gonna play. What kind of question is that for an interrogation? Like, do you swear to God? Like, that's basically for him,
That's
for people
bullshit.
to buy that John is
But
even
good on
religious.
Special Prosecutor Mike Caine, the guy who would end up being the prosecutor for the grand jury, who decided to interject oh, you're a Christian man.
Prove
What's your
it.
favorite Bible passage? And John can't even do that.
You don't got
Can't
nothing.
really do one. Wow.
I mean, it's a fucking malarkey.
Thomas said he left that final briefing after watching all that stuff and he knew it was over for him. The inmates had taken over the asylum and lunacy reigned. An aggressive grand jury prosecution targeting the Ramseys was not going to happen. The defense lawyers had manipulated the process to death. Justice had been derailed. The DA's investigators thought the Ramseys were innocent, and the posse was saddling up to gallop off after suspects who had already been cleared. He decides to resign from the police department and go into carpentry.
My guy, I go into carpentry too. I love carpet.
Go into the woods.
He turned over his badge and his other gear to police intermediaries in a feed store parking lot.
Oh my God, like a tractor supply company.
Like they don't even show up at, we're going to meet you.
Just
Al's
as a
feed.
pariah when literally he's the only one making sense amongst all of these people that are superiors, because you can tell that their actions are motivated and fueled by them getting quid pro quos in a corrupt system.
And we know that he resigned on JonBenet's birthday. He sent some flowers to a grave and then basically said that he can't in good conscience doing this, been through tears and stuff, and
Classy guy.
He was a classy guy.
It's like that time I hook it out Donna, and that guy gave you those coupons so you could. I mean, we got how many Dunkin'
They were
Donuts?
expired. It was bullshit.
They still honored them after I made a scene.
Well, yeah, but I don't want to do that
got
every
these
time I go
donuts.
to eat.
Well, maybe if you had more donuts on your person, I wouldn't have to pour you out.
Here's some ham.
Give me some ham. There you go. All right. You got your ham and you.
Yeah, I got my ham. So he quit.
After he quits, though, he gets warned by Jeff Shapiro that the Globe is going to be digging deep into his background, and they plan on using personal information about the circumstances of his mother's death to blackmail him. Thomas gets a FedEx delivery, which consists of old photos of his family members in Arkansas, dug up by the Globe. The photos are accompanied by a letter from Craig Lewis, which Thomas calls a mafioso-like attempt at extortion to get him to talk. Thomas is horrified and disgusted. This was the same tabloid newspaper that Alex Hunter was in bed with.
Oh my God.
Of course.
These personal attacks by the DA's office and tabloids and the hypocrisy, claiming I was a dangerous media leak when the DA's office itself had diarrhea of the mouth, fueled the writing of this book that he ended up doing.
I mean, I would.
Because he retired and he started writing the book. Thomas watches the grand jury proceedings unfold from the sidelines as he writes.
In October of 1999, the district attorney, upon the grand jury concluding, had a press conference, and I, as much of an insider as anybody on this case, was led to believe that the grand jury had disbanded without any further comment or vote. Knowing that all of the persons involved were sworn to a lifetime of grand jury secrecy, he folded those true bills up, in effect, put them in his pocket, gave that carefully worded press conference that fooled me and everybody else, and for 14 years, nobody had any idea until a grand juror stepped forward and disclosed, hey, we voted. We voted to indict.
B-I-N-J-O.
And how frustrating
Bingo.
would that be to, like, you know, you have to sit there and, like, they're even using as an excuse, like the grand jury voted not to indict.
For years.
And
But
you're
they
seeing it.
did.
But he did predict it, so he was kind of anticipatory of, you know, the whole being possibly
You
rigged.
knew what they was down.
But once that ended, Thomas also got some inside information that absolutely infuriated him.
Boy.
Thomas learned that Hunter had a secret plea deal in the 1983 grand jury hearing in the murder of Sid Wells, the guy that was the boyfriend of Robert Redford's daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Alex Hunter was also the district attorney during that time.
Oh my God.
And he had a secret deal. He had promised the attorney of the defendant, Thane Smicka, there would be no indictment. This deal was kept from the victim's family, the investigating cops, and the grand jurors. Though he says obtaining an indictment would not have been difficult, in my opinion, based upon the available evidence and the agreement of so many law enforcement experts. Thomas isn't hopeful for an indictment in the Ramsey case, at least not one followed by the arrest and trial, because these were not the strong points of our district attorney.
What the heck is going on, Bobby?
Alex Hunter made a secret deal with them, which it took 14 years before even the victims' families found out.
It's
that-
precedent. He
Dear
does that kind of
God.
stuff.
And is it
Wow.
what? Is it just because you don't want to afford a trial?
Right.
Is that it? Or are you getting paid off? What's the deal here?
Probably a few of those things.
Yeah, why in particular? Like with a deal, like normally you're getting something out of it, and it's like, oh, well, like we made a plea deal if you give us the names of these, blah blah blah. But it's like these are just basically people getting the breaks just for the sake of just like, oh no, I don't want you to have to go through that or whatever. You know,
Right.
what did they get out of it? Except it probably was some sort of like back room, sort of behind the scenes, sort of fucking like payoff, sort of whatever the fuck.
Something.
Organized crime.
Again, 1973 is when he started being the district attorney.
My
But
God.
it came out that it supposedly like there was some sort of backroom deals or whatever. You know, Steve Thomas would go on to do his book, you know,
Yeah.
and the Ramseys would actually end up suing him.
They tried to sue dummies. Of course they did.
They did.
Right.
They did. And there was the whole thing where basically there was, from what I found out, there was a whole online community of people that were willing to back his defense against the Ramseys. Steve Thomas, I guess, had promised some certain people that he would never, you know, never fold in this case, kind of thing. Like, don't
People
worry, no matter
respected
what.
that. Crowdfunding.
And then as the Chris Wolf stuff was starting to ramp up too, this was also in the middle of Steve's lawsuit. And then out of nowhere, Steve Thomas, he ends up settling the lawsuit
Oh, when he said he wouldn't.
when he said he wouldn't, which upset some people. They were canvassing door to door for certain stuff and legal funds. And there was a whole thing where basically Jameson ended up leaking this to the web sleuths people. And they didn't even believe it was real at first, but like, no, here's his press release that's going to come out. She had it first.
She had inside scoop.
And nobody believed her at first until they officially saw it reported. And she was kind of
Jameson.
throwing it in the face, and it was
Cherry
just
in
a
the water.
huge disappointment to a lot of people. But Steve Thomas says that he didn't lose any of his own money personally, so that might have been his publisher. And he also suggests that, you know, he was possibly pressured into settling in this matter.
Jesus, this
More
is so
blackmail.
fucking dark. It's
I
like a
don't
Ridley
know.
Scotch type movie.
He would later participate in certain lawsuits involving the Ramseys, like the Don A. Hoffman one, where, if anything, I think he took a little bit of enjoyment, you know, responding to Lynn Wood in answers like, I don't remember, or, you know, stuff, you know, just fucking with him. Where it's like, oh, you know, you're not going to do that. He went into carpentry for a little while, and then he ended up getting into realty, I found out in Florida. So he has some sort of like realty company going on and stuff out there.
I mean, he's a very trustworthy type of disposition to a guy, you know? He calls it like it is.
That's true. And then, though, in 2010, though, we had a little bit of a breakthrough.
Was 39 years ago today that a student at CU Boulder was murdered in his apartment. The suspect in that case is still on the loose. It's a story that gained a lot of national attention.
Now, it's due in part to a connection to one of the country's most famous actors. Here with more is 9 News crime and justice reporter Matt Jablow.
In August of 1983, Sid Wells was 22 years old and about to enter his senior year at CU Boulder with dreams of becoming a broadcast journalist. His longtime girlfriend, Shauna, was the daughter of actor Robert Redford, a major reason the story attracted so much attention when Wells was murdered.
It was a big story based on the people involved.
Boulder Police Detective Commander Thomas Trujillo remembers it well. Sid Wells was found shot to death in his Boulder apartment. A short time later, his roommate, 24-year-old Thane Smicka, was arrested in connection with Wells's murder. But the Boulder DA declined to file charges, and Smicka was let go. Police say a possible motive was that Smicka owed Wells $300 for rent that day.
On this case, we have not gotten very many tips very often.
The FBI says Smyka's abandoned car was found in California in 1986. But other than that, there's been no sign of him since he was released from custody.
Police department opened the case back up in 2010.
In December of 2012, a judge signed an arrest warrant for Smyka after Boulder police developed more evidence in the case. To date, though, the trail has been ice cold.
Maybe somebody will see something, maybe they'll remember something, and they'll call us up and give us some information.
Thomas Trujillo says if Smyka is still alive, he's confident he'll eventually be caught and prosecuted.
Do you think this one will be solved?
I think it will if we locate Thane Smyka.
And do you think you will locate him?
I hope so.
The FBI is now offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to Smyka's arrest and conviction. They say it's possible he lived in Mexico for many years after he was released from custody and could be living there now. Kim and Tom?
Quite a mystery that many of us remember. 39 years gone. All right. Thanks, Matt.
Whoa.
Mm-hmm.
So even after all those years, they could...
Now they've reopened it back up where they are actually looking for him. They see they've made a mistake. Alex Hunter made a mistake by choosing not to go after, rigging the whole thing, making a deal. And now it's like they're going after the actual suspect. But he's been missing ever since. The FBI is still actually
trying to find him.
Mm-hmm.
And that they could do that. They could do that for the JonBenet case, right? Is that what the
I think?
Well, that's
so.
what he did with the JonBenet case, the grand jury thing. He did the exact same thing.
Right. So like that like because Boulder reopened this one, maybe they can reopen the JonBenet one if they find that Alex Hunter makes these mistakes intentionally.
Right.
Possibly. That's
Right,
I don't
like-
know. I don't know the technicalities of that.
No,
but
I'm lying.
again, he's like a realtor now, and he's happy. He says that there's a lot of people around him don't actually even know like
Anything
his
about
actual
it.
history.
Yeah.
He's
But
living in Florida.
I think it'd be good to close it out too with a quote that he made in his original resignation letter. He said that somebody really close to him once told him that it is a sin to remain silent when it's your duty to protest.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's exactly what Abraham Lincoln said too.
That was it?
Yeah, absolutely. At the induction of the Underground Railroad or something. When they cut the ribbon for the railroad.
The ribbon cutting. Mm.
Yeah.
So what do you think, guys?
I mean, it's hard to be a good man in a bad world.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if anybody exemplifies that kind of classic Gary Cooper cowboy sort of, person of value and virtue and just like indefatigable will, it is Mr. State Thomas.
Yeah.
And it's a damn shame that, there's when you're going up against a fucking hydra of a defense, ecosystem that is also,
Right.
help you
It's
get.
so vast. Like there's so many moving parts.
And
Like,
behind
if
your
you're
back.
one person. Like how can you like?
So many people profited from this case staying a mystery, and also from him
Right.
not being believed or given. You know what I mean?
I think he was too specific with his theory, though, by
Yeah.
saying that he was so sure that Patsy did it. Because that's when they react on the Larry King show. They're very much like, they're very matter of fact. Like, please walk me through the events. Kind of thing,
And
where it's like-
laughing and that's
Because
just
she
not
knows
taking it
maybe
serious.
she didn't do it.
Like
and that's his pitfall, where it's like, I
Right.
think he was a good detective, but hinging it so specifically on that.
Yeah, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And he's just, and it's like, there's also bigger points that can be made when you're not too fixated on the exact thing. There's broader things that
Right.
can be confirmed.
Right.
If you're like, you kind of look at a bigger picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't have that tunnel vision on like what you are like focused on.
And that's
You
why
have
we're
to-
here.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, that was a good episode, guys.
Good
And it was a
job.
really good episode, Bobby. Really good
long.
investigative work. About putting all the sources together, looking up
Yeah.
pictures and things.
There's just so many threads.
So many moving parts, but a little background into Steve Thomas while you guys are going into that JonBenet Netflix documentary.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see if they talk about Ella holding people back and stuff and the whole
Right.
bureaucracy. But
Where do they cast the blame
interesting.
and what
they
version of the
bundled
story
the crime
do they
scene,
tell?
but maybe they were ordered to.
Exactly.
Right,
That's.
right.
I mean, I never know that.
That's crazy. Yeah. Well, hey. All right, guys.
Wow.
Well, hey.
Good job, everybody.
Good job.
Good job,
episode.
All right. Well, hey, I'm Bobby Pavlovsky.
And I'm Todét. We're all over again this Maggie.
And this is
JonBenet today.
How many dogs? How many nipples can do a
thought it
dog
was
do a dog
8.
got, Bobby?